All right, so in this video, we're going to talk about the new Buell Super Cruiser, the modern day FXR. Let's check it out. What's going on, YouTube? FXDLS Brooklyn is back in the building, kicking it up from the legendary garage out here. We got the DX Bushwick bike as well as the 124 FXDLS. So yeah, I wasn't planning to do a video on this for a while until more details came out about this new project, this new bike that Buell and Roland Sands announced last week. So yeah, I wasn't planning to make a video on this topic, but I dropped a post yesterday just weighing it, just wanted to see how you all felt about the announcement and everything. And a lot of you messaged me just asking why I hadn't made a video on this yet or what my feelings were. So I figured if there's that much demand, I'll make a video for it. So yeah, if you haven't been living under a rock, then you probably saw last week that there came this random big announcement. I had no idea that this was something that was in the works, that Buell partnered up with Roland Sands, had announced a super cruiser to be released in the year of 2025 with some pretty crazy impressive numbers for a cruiser, right? We're talking 450 pounds and with 175 horsepower. That's pretty crazy for a cruiser, right? So yeah, they made this announcement, right? And of course, a couple people made videos. As always with this type of stuff, we're talking about borderline FXR revival, borderline modern day FXR, which is going to generate a lot of feelings, especially for me. So first and foremost, one of the videos that I did watch on it, who I think did a really good job, is over at John's Moto Garage. I think he did a really good video on it. Like, he did an initial video where, he was excited for it, but then he came back and then he did another video where he was being a little bit more realistic about the situation, and he was weighing in, some of the pros and cons of the situation. So first and foremost, if you are passionate about this type of content, FXR, Dyna, high performance Harley-Davidson, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We'll have a lot more exciting content in this vein coming your way, and it would really help me out, and I'd love to have you on the team. So again, if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, do us a favor, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. So yeah, initial feelings, for someone who lives in a lot of different worlds in performance Harley-Davidson, right? I have this bike right here, which is 100% a giant motor, a 124 S&S high compression, which is putting up some pretty serious numbers, your ultimate hot rod Dyna. So I live in the world of a really fast Dyna. So then I have my 2001 FXDX, which is hands down one of the ultimate cool guy Dynas. This bike and this year and model in particular in the last couple of years has gotten a lot of hype. With good reason. It's probably one of the best handling Dynas and just all around fun to ride. But it's got an 88 cubic inch engine, and we have a cam in there, but we're talking about a realistic size engine. This one, in terms of all my bikes, is kind of like my Swiss Army Dyna, right? And then, of course, I have many FXR miles on an 88 FXR SP, which if you've been following me throughout the past couple months, I was involved in an accident on that bike, so that bike is in no condition to be in video right now. So yeah, I kind of have like the trifecta of cool guy, high performance Harley Davidson. So I'm weighing in from that point of view. I say this in a lot of my videos. I'm by no means a know-it-all on the subject. The reason why I like doing this type of content is the comment section for these videos is always coming through with really knowledgeable people where I always learn something new about this stuff. So, definitely listen to what I have to say about it. But again, I'm just a guy that likes to stack miles on Harley-Davidson, Dynas, and FXRs. I'm by no means a know-it-all. So if you're going to listen to me, take a moment to sweep through the comment section. I'm sure you'll learn something new in there as well. So my initial feeling on the announcement is 100% positive, right? I know just reading through some of the comments on the post that I made, there's a lot of reservations coming from people, specifically just about the price of this going up, whether it's feasible for it to be mass produced for a public audience, concerns about where you would get this thing maintained and costs and maintenance costs, all that. That's all real. Like, I totally agree with that. But here's kind of my stance of someone who's been preaching the gospel of somebody making a modern day FXR for years now. So even if this bike never even comes into fruition in 2025, the fact that this topic is even going right now and it has people talking about this and we could clearly see that it's generated a lot of excitement is overall a really good thing, right? And it gives me a lot of hope. So you all know my situation. There's been two gospels that I've been preaching as a moto vlogger throughout my 7+ years of doing this. The one of which has been sport touring, doing heavy mile bike trips on bikes that weren't designed to do so, which was pretty cool because in the year of 2022, Harley-Davidson came out with the Lowrider ST, validating that style that myself as well as a whole bunch of other riders have been passionate about for years, right? So that gives me hope. That had always given me hope for something like an FXR being remade. So like I said, even if it's the worst case scenario and this thing just never even comes to fruition, just the fact that Harley Davidson and the motorcycle industry in totality is seeing that people are excited for this type of thing, that's already a win, right? That's already a win for those of us who are, I'll call it FXR revivalists, those of us who believe in that frame, believe in that style of bike, and want to see it pushed forward in a modern day iteration. So now, as I'm looking at my Hot Rod FXDLS 124, like I said, this has an absolute monster motor in it, putting forth some serious horsepower. I know what it is to run big numbers on a Harley Davidson. I know what it is to run a hot rod build. And this is kind of where my feelings on the entire thing may be a little bit different than what the general public is saying. So I've said this before in a lot of my FXR videos. My favorite riding to do on my FXR is in the mountain twisties or in an urban environment. These are all situations that do not require a big motor, that do not require big numbers. So on my FXR, right, all the riding that I typically do on it, I would have a blast with an 80 cubic inch motor with a cam in it. That was all I needed to have a blast on that bike, right? A lot of you who watch my FXR videos often say the phrase, it's fun to ride a slow bike fast. And I've definitely found that to be true with my 1988 FXR, right? So yes, can you put it on the highway and do highway miles? Can you tour with it? Absolutely. But I found that the best purpose and the funnest way to use the FXR again was doing the back mountain twisties, was doing the urban riding, generally doing riding that you're going to be in the pocket of anywhere from 40 to 70 miles per hour, not going too crazy. So that's kind of where this first part of the idea of putting 175 horsepower into an FXR frame, honestly, it's just kind of lost on me personally because the type of riding I would be doing with an FXR frame, it just wouldn't require that much power. It'd be totally unnecessary. And again, I am coming from the world with a big motor, with big power, and I can tell you, with big motors come big problems. So I don't necessarily know if I would want to be dealing with the potential problems and maintenance that would come along with slinging that type of power when I'm not going to be putting it in situations that would need that type of power. Honestly, if it does come out in with those numbers and in that way, it almost seems to me that they're marketing it towards someone who's going to be throwing it on a track. I feel like I'd be getting the most use out of that thing on a track if I were going to get that bike with those numbers. And don't get me wrong, like I'm not saying I wouldn't be happy about 175 horsepower. I've gone through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to max out the horsepower on this bike. So obviously I'm a horsepower junkie, but at the end of the day, I'm also a realistic rider, and that type of horsepower for the type of riding I'd be doing with that bike, it would be more just to have it to say that I have it more than actually using it fully, right? Which, is great, but it's not great if I'm going to be paying thousands of dollars extra for unused horsepower that's going to come along with potential headaches. So that's kind of my first feeling about it is the whole horsepower thing and all that comes along with it. It's totally wasted on me, right? The thing that I'm most excited about is to just see a modern iteration of that frame. So for me, again, the most exciting thing was the frame and obviously that weight cut. Like, who doesn't want to cut an FXR frame down to 450 pounds? That's amazing. So, again, they offer it with a smaller motor, something a little bit more realistic for someone who's going to be using the bike for, say, twisties and urban riding that doesn't need 175 horsepower, which, again, I like those numbers, but I don't like those numbers if I'm going to be throwing down a lot of extra money for it and not utilizing it on the track. So yeah, that's kind of the first thing. And if you're someone that owns an FXR and you ride an FXR, then you know what I'm talking about, right? So the fastest FXR I've actually ever ridden was Peter's Hood Status 95 inch hot rod Edelbrook kit FXR, and that thing ripped, man. And again, we're talking about 95 cubic inches. That's maybe we're talking about maybe half the horsepower of what they'd be coming out with this new bike, and even that bike totally ripped. I didn't even feel like I needed that much horsepower for the type of riding I'd typically be doing with an FXR. So that's kind of my experience when it comes to FXR horsepower and all that. So look, the one thing I'm going to say that probably it might not be too popular with some of y'all, and some of you probably don't want to hear this, but I mentioned it. I mentioned it before that I felt like a success of Harley Davidson within the recent years has been having their finger on the pulse of what the younger generation wants. And again, I feel like this new Buell Super Cruiser is being marketed towards my style of riding, which is high performance, Dyna, and FXR, younger generation of riders, right? So that being said, I almost feel like the perfect thing, or the perfect news to come out with this situation would be the company of Harley Davidson to see people throwing down these $50 deposits, to see people really excited about this idea, and there being some sort of partnership happening between Harley Davidson, Buell, as well as Roland Sands to have the trifecta of perfection that would make this bike be even that more special. Because now, if you could put a Milwaukee 8 in there, even something as like a 107, now all of a sudden we are solving some of those problems where it's like, okay, you have a more realistic motor in there. It's going to bring the cost down. You also have Harley Davidson distributing it, so people don't have to worry so much about where am I going to get this thing, serviced. You open up the door to getting this thing serviced wherever there's a Harley Davidson dealership. I think the chances of that happening are slim to none. This is again like wishful thinking to see there be some sort of renewed partnership with Buell, Harley Davidson, as well as Roland Sands. If you then throw Harley Davidson into the mix, well, now I think a lot of people could die happy because we're going to have a true FXR be remade and there will be no punches pulled. It's going to be what everybody wants. So yeah, that kind of brings me to the end of this one, which is where I'm at. Am I throwing down a $50 deposit on one of these bikes for 2025? Me personally, I'm not. You could see just within this garage, I kind of have my hands in a lot of different buckets right now in terms of performance Harley Davidson. So that's just not something that's on the list for me in the future. But I'm also open to the idea, and I'm more someone who's going to be sitting back, putting my feet up, eating the popcorn, and seeing where this thing goes in 2025. Maybe giving it a year or two, and if it pans out, if the costs make sense, if folks are able to feasibly run these bikes, then it's definitely a bike I would consider. As again, being an FXR revivalist, like that's what I've been preaching for years: is remake the FXR, take that frame and put some modern touches on it. I've been saying it for years. You've all heard it in my videos, so it's cool to see that it's actually coming to fruition. My hopes again is that it's done right and that it's done in a way that's affordable to the general public. Even if this doesn't pan out, even if this does not go our way, the fact that this is something that is going on and people are talking about this just in mainstream motorcycle culture is 100% a win for those of us who are passionate about FXRs. So that's kind of where I stand on it. As always, feel free to weigh in on the comment section. You all let me know, what are your thoughts about it? Are you someone that's already laid down that deposit? I know a good amount of you have. And that's it, y'all. Going to close it out for here. Before we do so, we do have new t-shirts available. This is the Outright Death Design 2023. We have all sizes remaining, so let us know if you are looking to get a t-shirt and we'll make that happen. Yeah, you gotta love that. The only time that we pan to the bagger in the entire episode is to just advertise a t-shirt. I hope those of you who left a deposit on this bike see it come to fruition. Just really looking forward to seeing where this goes. And I think, generally, those of us who are passionate about this sort of riding, this is a really good thing for us, even to just have this conversation getting started here. So as always, stay safe, stay low. On that, FXTLS Brooklyn is out.